You're with Wayne and Jess for breakfast with our Radio 97 resident lawyer joining us right now, Despina Priala.
And Despina, the waves have continued over the last couple of weeks around the allegations to do with Attorney General Christian Porter, including one of Australia's biggest law firms. Now, the chief executive of Minter Ellison, Annette Kimmett, discovered that a senior partner in her firm had agreed to represent the Attorney General over defamation, and she sent an email to staff. Now, I'll just read this email. It says, "The nature of this matter is clearly causing hurt to some of you, and it has certainly triggered hurt for me." That's got her into a lot of hot water.
It has, quite rightly, I have to say, because why would you say such a thing to your staff?
And in writing, you told us you never put anything in writing, particularly in this manner.
Well, that's right. So why would you issue that statement in the first place is the question you'd have to ask.
Do we know what's behind it?
Well, you could venture at a guess, I'm sure, for yourselves. But from my point of view, if I was working for Minter Ellison at whatever level, junior, senior lawyer, partner, and we received that email, I'd really then have to question, okay, well, I've got an email from my CEO. I better take note because she's the CEO and she's up the top of the chain, and she's putting out there to us that we have to take this into consideration. She apologises. It might trigger hurt for some of us. Really? Why? And then that would, for me, say, whoa, why would that be the case about the Attorney General? Is he guilty? Is that why the email's been sent? That's a bit strange. So that's how I would perceive it. So I think, my own opinion, it was very wrong of her to send that. And when I first saw the story hit, it was last week, I think it was, before our show, last week, I said to myself then, well, she's not going to last. And that's from
Precisely
one female practitioner, to everybody else, that it's got nothing to do with being a male or a female. It was the wrong statement to make. You can't just make those blanket statements. And the whole fuss about it is, of course, is that it implies very much so that the Attorney General is guilty, and the presumption of innocence is lost, because the staff will then take away from that email a number of things, and quite clearly the primary thing is he must be guilty for the CEO to send an email to us, the staff, saying, I'm sorry if this is triggering hurt for you. Hurt? Why? Is he guilty? So, yes, I think it was very wrong, and everyone's entitled to the presumption of innocence at law, and he has to have that from the very beginning. So you cannot just make those blanket statements and get away with it. And I know there's been a bit of talk after the headlines have hit about, well, she's been stood down as CEO, she's not going to be the CEO anymore of Minter Ellison. And then, of course, other people are talking about, is it because she's female?
A woman, yeah.
And that, again's wrong. I mean, it's not because she's a woman, it's because it was the wrong statement. And if a man had made that, and there was a male CEO, again...
Same implications?
Oh, undoubtedly, in my view, because it's got nothing to do with being a male or a female at all. It was simply the wrong statement. And I remember distinctly when I saw the first story hit last week, I said, are you kidding? Why would you make such a statement to your staff? It's ludicrous, actually, and she's basically ending a career.
Yeah. Do you have any thoughts on why she might have sent the email? I mean, is there, obviously she has her own reasons, but would you care to elaborate on that?
I don't know, maybe it's virtual signalling. A lot of people are doing that. Maybe she's coloured by her own views. Maybe she has other reasons, other hidden agendas. I can't really comment on that particularly, and I don't know personally why she sent it. But those are some of the, perhaps we can use that as a base and do what you will with those, those guesses that I've made. But whether or not, whatever the reason is, it was wrong.
It was calculated, perhaps?
Perhaps there was another reasoning behind it, that's right. But certainly in 25 years as I've been a lawyer, I've never seen this type of event occur. So that's why we've talked about virtual signalling, and people do that. There's people are out there all the time doing this in society, making a name for themselves, putting statements out there.
To make themselves look better?
Yes.
Public perception?
Maybe this was an example of that. I don't know.
You've only made me aware the fact that she isn't a lawyer herself, and yet she's the head of the company.
Yes. So interesting, isn't it? She came across from Ernst & Young, and she's only been with Minter Ellison since 2018, so only 2 years or so. And often with these big law firms, they are public companies, some of them, and they often do get a non-lawyer as the head of the company, as the CEO, from a strategic point of view, from an accounting and operational point of view. Sometimes the firms think that it's better and preferred that they're a non-lawyer. So in this case, that is an issue because you've got the CEO doing the wrong thing, in my view. You've got a CEO who's not a lawyer, and being a non-lawyer, perhaps she didn't truly understand the obligations that we have to our clients and the ethics that we have to adhere to as a lawyer, which are very high. And the partners at that firm are quite aware of those issues as well, that clients are innocent until proven guilty. And sometimes we don't get to pick and choose the clients, but in this case, the statement itself was quite wrong.
Now, you mentioned the name Ernst & Young, so that gives her an accounting background, would that be correct?
That's right.
So should they have a lawyer as the top lawyer for this firm?
Yes, we'll query whether they should. I think it's definitely something for those firms to look at. And as I said before, a lot of these big firms as public companies do have non-lawyers as the CEO. You know, query, is that right? Really, it should be a lawyer, in my view, and I think maybe they might change it for the future. But being a lawyer of itself, you are quite aware of your onerous obligations and liabilities to the client, to the firm, to your co-workers, and the ethics that you have to adhere to, because you yourself as a lawyer, you're liable for those, and you have compliance issues. Being a non-lawyer, you don't. So perhaps that might have been part of why she may have thought she was within her rights to make such a statement.
Right.
But she did represent Minter Ellison.
Yeah.
So do you think by rights it was the right thing for Minter Ellison to request that she stand down?
I don't think Minter Ellison had a choice, really. For a firm to continue to operate and have a person like that as the CEO, they'd have their own issues to deal with, particularly having Christian Porter as a client. And I will say this, that it was a very strange statement to make because, one, obviously the presumption of innocence seems to have been lost in translation, definitely lost with that statement made with the innuendos. But secondly, Minter Ellison act for clients of this nature, so high-profile clients with these types of claims. This is not a first from Minter Ellison, and people who work for Minter Ellison are quite aware of that, or should be, that this is the type of clientele that the firm has. So again, query, why did you send the email? Okay, this is not the first time Minter Ellison is acting for this type of client and this type of matter.
So it could actually affect their business in the future, couldn't it?
Well, potentially it could. Potentially, yeah. And you have to ask, again, why wouldn't you take him as a client? Why wouldn't you? And one of the Minter Ellison senior lawyers actually made that statement, was quoted to say that, it's very odd. Why wouldn't we take him as a client? In other words, he's presumed to be innocent until found guilty. Yep. So again, we say, why wouldn't we take him as a client? So yes, I do agree that it was a wrong statement to make, and I agree with the position that Minter Ellison has taken in standing her down. Absolutely.
And wasn't there consultation happening? Or I'll just get my statement out first before everyone else has a feeling on it?
Well, that's right. She put out there that, look, there's a process whereby we go through to engage clients and agree as to which clients we take on. But then again, she's gone off on her own tangent and made her own statement without consulting with the partners. So, you can't have it both ways. Yes.
Well, it takes someone like you to actually take us through this, a legal professional that actually, you're au fait over all of these kinds of matters. I mean, I don't think this is the last we've heard of this.
No, not at all. So we'll watch this space, but definitely she won't be returning, I'm sure.
So anything in relation to the law, if you do have a question, breakfast@radio97.com.au. We'd love to hear from you. Otherwise, people can come and see you in Runaway Bay at your boutique law firm.
They can call the office 55291 294, have a chat with my lovely staff or myself, make a time to come and see me if you have an issue of concern. Happy to help.
All right, Despina, we'll catch you next week.
See you then.